大家好，欢迎到下一个 Travel 来。我叫麦克，还是 James Michael Smith, and this is my 90-day Chinese learning challenge. To give you a bit of background, I've been living in China for just over a year. I have learnt some Chinese. For some reason or another, I got out of the learning Chinese habit, but now I'm ready to go back at it. People usually do this kind of thing in January, but why not start a month early, get a head start? So at the moment I'm on day 7. I started on December 1st. People might think that if you're living in a foreign country for a long time, you will naturally pick up the language, which is kind of true, but you'll do it extremely slowly. How good at Chinese am I, having lived here for over a year? Now, there's a pragmatic way of looking at it, and then there's a more defined way of looking at it, and they both have their pros and cons. Now, I'll start with the most pragmatic one, in that what the language actually gives me and helps me to do in daily life, which is probably a lot of people's objectives. I think a reflection of my progress is that recently I went to the hospital. I had a bit of a cold and I needed to go and get an appointment so I can get some medicine and also a doctor's note so I could get paid sick leave. This is a surprisingly complicated thing to do in a foreign country. First of all, you've got to find the hospital. You've got to go to the front desk and try and figure out where you need to go by explaining what your problem is and what you actually need from them. So you can go to the doctor and make an appointment, but what it is you actually want from them, it's not obvious, it's not straightforward. I was pleasantly surprised by myself that I could go to the hospital. Well, eventually I found the right hospital, but again, that requires having to go to one hospital, explain my situation and ask if they can help me. And then they told me, oh no, you need to go to this hospital, and then being able to understand what they say and then tell that same thing to a taxi driver to take me to another hospital, and then get to the hospital, explain what I want and get what I needed. And I only needed to use the translator once. What we were communicating was not necessarily advanced, and I wasn't the best Chinese speaker in the world, but pragmatically speaking, which is what we're talking about, I got what I wanted and it was successful. So that was very, very satisfying to be able to do that. Where I'm at the moment is that in China, I can go about my daily life and do what I need to do to be able to complete daily tasks. Go shopping, take a taxi, do any errands I need, go to government offices if I need paperwork, and I can figure things out. And I'm at the ability where I can have a chat with the taxi driver about where I'm going, what I'm doing, who I am, what my job is, who my family are, whether or not I have a Chinese girlfriend, which for some reason they always ask, and have these sort of basic conversations where we're communicating. And to have a conversation, that's for me sort of like one pragmatic barrier you can overcome. If you're just starting out, you can start off with basic greetings and question and answer. Where is this? Where is that? It's over there, it's over here. But that's not a real conversation, that's just question and answer. But if you get to a certain point where you can actually exchange ideas and understand what people are saying to you and respond in kind, that's another step. The only problem with this is that it's very difficult to define it that way, and it's difficult to measure your progress. You know, I can say I had a really good conversation with the taxi driver, but you don't know how far you've come since the last time you had a conversation with a taxi driver. Which brings me nicely down to how I learn Chinese. I learn Chinese using an app, a language learning platform called Lingq, which was set up by the brilliant Steve Kaufman, a polyglot who knows something like 20 languages. He used his experience in learning languages, his frustrations with learning languages, to create this platform which is totally unique, totally interesting. And that's the thing. It's interesting. You want to do it. Now, there's a number of ways you can try to learn Chinese, just as there are a number of ways to lose weight. What's the key difference between them? Which one will you do? Which one will you actually stick at? There's a number of language learning gurus out there who think they've discovered the method for learning a language, right? And some work for some people better than others. Some people will swear by it, and other people will say it's a piece of crap. And I think that that can be put down to is what you find interesting. Now, the reason why I like Lingq is to give you a basic overview of what it is. They have thousands and thousands of articles and podcasts in writing and audio form, which you can read in the target language, and you can also make a record of the words you have seen before, the words you know, and they give you translations a number of different translations for each word. So it's a huge database as well as an information content hub. How this is different to other platforms, speaking more broadly, the different language learning tools that we have, let's say classroom instructions or just listening to audio classes or something like that, is that the content is completely self-directed. You can choose what you want to learn based on what you are interested in. Apart from the beginner material, which is specifically designed for people who are really new to the language, the vast majority of the content on the platform is authentic material. And what that means is that this is content written in the target language for native speakers. So let's say if you wanted to learn English, an example of authentic material would be a news article from the Telegraph or any other newspaper. I'm not playing favorites. What you end up doing is you choose what you want to learn, not necessarily based on the level, although that does come into it, but what you are interested in. So there's that intrinsic motivator when you go into an article on Lingq that, oh, that sounds like an interesting piece of content. I want to understand this language because I want to be able to understand the meaning of the content and get the value from it, right? Which is totally different from, let me learn how to say the cat ate my cheese in Chinese. Now, that can be interesting, but there's no intrinsic motivator there. And yeah, there's obvious point that the cat ate my cheese is not necessarily a useful phrase. I understand why it's there though. It's to try to help you understand the sentence structure. So compared to something like Duolingo, which I do like, by the way, I think it's a really good intro to a language. It takes you in very slowly. It's kind of fun. You go through the games, but the progress is really, really slow. And another benefit of Lingq is that the vocab comes thick and fast, and you really surprise yourself how quickly you can learn words. Now, where am I at the moment? So this week, apparently, I have accumulated 80 new words. Now, that's slightly overrated because I have lost some, because I took a break and now I'll come back into it. Some words have necessarily disappeared from my passive vocabulary. And this is what we're trying to accumulate, by the way, passive vocabulary. Words that we can read and understand in a context. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be able to reproduce it in a conversation, but that when I read it within the context of an article, I can more or less understand what it means. So I've accumulated 80 something, and maybe I've lost 50 of the articles I've written so far in 1 week as part of this new 90-day challenge. I expected this. At the beginning, I was really impressed with myself that things were coming back to mind as soon as I was consuming these articles, and that's a really good thing. If you have dropped out, this is a really good thing to be reassured of. If you have dropped out of language learning and you jump back into it, it doesn't really take that long to get back into it. You'll surprise yourself at how much you do know. Now, getting towards the end of this week, it's coming to the realization, okay, yeah, I have forgotten quite a few words as well, but that's fine. This is all part of the process. Some words will come back, some words will go away, and this will happen anyway, even if you haven't taken a break. This is what Steve Kaufman keeps saying. Don't worry, just don't worry about it. The point is sort of enjoyment, right? Why do we want to learn a language ultimately? It's not necessarily going to get you a job. It's not necessarily going to get you laid. It's going to be intrinsically interesting. That's what it is for me anyway, to be able to communicate in a language, to communicate with people who otherwise you would have been able to communicate in their own language, which comes with it its own cultural connotations, its own way of looking at the world. So the intrinsic interest is what drives everything with this platform, which I find is just so brilliant. And that's why I recommend it above Duolingo, but you can also do it in addition to Duolingo, that's fine. And also compared to classroom instruction. As an English teacher who works in the classroom, I understand the value of classroom instruction, especially because one of the things we're trying to do firstly is to help the students be comfortable using the language, and that's this through the activities, the games, the performances and things like this. And one of the value outcomes is to be able to perform, right? And that's something that you can't necessarily do over an app. What I'm really comparing it to is back in school, Right, so I learned French at school, right? And if somebody came to you and said, oh, I studied French for 3 years, you'd expect them to be able to speak a little bit of French. That's reasonable, isn't it? I don't remember anything really. Maybe if I went back to learn it, some things would come back, but you know, cafe au lait. School language learning is so inefficient and it puts people off language learning, and it makes me so angry because it gives you this idea that the point of language instruction, the main method should be rigorous grammar, drills, instructions, tenses. There's a set way of learning so that you have a foundation, and it's like a pyramid like this, and you need to know all the colors and all, you know, all this, that, and there, here, and then you can build up. With Lingq, you don't need to do that. If you want to go straight into learning about economics after a couple of weeks of the basics, you can do that if you want. Now, it might be a bit difficult for you because there's going to be more words that are listed as unknown as you go through the article. But because you find it interesting, you are more likely to crack on with it and not fall out of it. This is the big thing with building habits and New Year's resolutions and this thing. What's the best method? One that you will do. Forget about willpower. One that you want to do. And this has been the best platform so far in helping me find it intrinsically interesting and want to continue doing it. And it's not something I feel like is a chore, mostly. So I did fall out of it. And I don't have any particular excuse really, I just sort of fell out of it. But I felt coming back into it, yeah, I remember how fun this is. And hopefully in 90 days, I will have made significant progress. Let me see, can I find my stats? All-time stats. I know 4,334 words in Chinese. And as I said before, what that means is I know words in context. I have seen 15,000 words. So as you can see, 2/3 of those words I have seen, but they have not been retained. They're not in my passive vocabulary yet. I can see them, I recognize them, I've seen them before, but I can't bring to mind the definition of it. So what am I doing each day in the 90-day challenge? I am going through content on the app, finding new words to add to my dictionary, discovering words that I've seen before that I've not quite remembered, and then hopefully try and remember what they mean, and therefore consider them known words. And I'm aiming for a certain amount every day. So on Lingq, you have your daily goal, and you can set it to be small, you can set it to be high. So what I've got going at the moment is that I'm looking to create 50 links. And a link is when you click on a new word, it creates a new definition and you've added it to your dictionary. So to discover 50 new words, and a certain proportion of those I will transfer into known words. So gradually I'm increasing my links and I'm increasing my known words every day. The known words is sort of like a good benchmark for you. It's a nice big number. The process of going through these articles is trying to turn those yellow words, they're marked in yellow, the links created, the seen words, into known words, and they have certain stages of knowing. Like you start off, oh, I've just seen this, I don't really know what it is, I've just seen the definition, probably won't remember it, that's fine. Wait until you see it next time, and then you'll be like, oh, okay, because then you've seen it in a different context, and then it helps you remember that way. You can sit there with a flashcard until the cows come home, what yuan yi, yuan yi was, all right, you can do it that way, but it's bloody boring, admit it. This way, when you see that particular word within the context, it's like relevant. It's relevant to you because you want to know what the sentence means, because you're interested, you're following the story, you're following the content. And that's the thing. The importance of willingness to do something is crucial. Anyway, I'll update you further on, and what I'll also do is I'm going to have a conversation in Chinese with somebody, maybe my friend Jerry, and I will record that and show it to you to show you where I am now. At the end of the 90-day challenge, I will do another one to show you how much I've progressed in 90 days. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to subscribe to Shy Guy Travel for more videos about China, about Chinese language learning. I've also started my new podcast called Shy Guy Talks, where I'm just talking to people who I want to talk to because I'm interested in it. It took me a long time to start a podcast. should have just learned from Lingq. Just do what you will do, which is what you find interesting.